Hello, everyone. How are you doing? And welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show, where we have the discussions that inform, entertain, and empower educators to be the change. I'm your host, Dr. Will. And today we will be talking about how do you stand out in this digital age. And my guest today is Ginain Grayes. How are you doing, Ginain?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being a guest on the show. Now, some people are going to watch this show. They're going to may find it on YouTube. Someone's going to send it to them, and they're going to say, "What does branding or social have anything to do with me?" I'm an educator. Okay, I'm a teacher. I'm not soap. I'm not some sort of product. This has absolutely zero relevance to me. But I want to push back on you today, and Ginain is going to give you the 411. But your brand and marketing yourself and using these social tools and leveraging them are extremely important for you nowadays, because, beforehand, as a teacher, you could do something, you maybe you could go on vacation, 20 years ago and do something stupid and still keep your job. But nowadays, with social, you can do something stupid and someone can catch it on a smartphone and it's over. So it's important now to understand how all of this works and be able to leverage the power of it. So I'm going to get into it because Ginain coaches educators as part of her job in school, public relations. And so what is a coach in terms of what you do, and what is the purpose of coaching? What is the purpose of the work that you actually do?
Okay, so just to kind of give you a brief overview, by day, I'm a communications and marketing administrator for Hillsborough County Public Schools in Tampa. We're the 8th largest school district in the nation with over 250 schools. So for the past several, years, 7 years to be exact, I've served as an expert when it comes to marketing, branding. I've managed our social media platforms, and just recently I started working with schools and school leaders and teachers and helping them be able to not only market their programs, but also, I've had teachers reach out to me and say, look, I want to be able to brand myself. I want to be speaking at, the next great conference coming up, and how do I market myself? So it's really interesting, and it's really exciting to be a part of that. And I kind of feel like whether you're in the corporate world or in education, the overall objective in coaching is really to be able to empower, individuals, empower groups, empower teams, and really be able to broaden, their scope and develop and to, work together. So, and it really is also about descriptive feedback. So being able to be honest, and just the person who's receiving that coaching also being able to trust the process, and knowing that, there are areas that need to be worked on, and just being open to sometimes having those uncomfortable conversations, and really digging deep down and what is it that I really need to hone and work on to be able to see some gains. So, that's overall coaching. That's kind of my approach is very straightforward, very, simplistic. So, and I'm sure you've seen it, and I'm sure, your audience has seen too, like there's also a really, a trend now, within not only education, but within coaching, where folks are really taking their professional development, like they're owning it, and that part is really exciting to see. So just to be a part of all of that is really great.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So, okay, so I'm a teacher, and I go to you and I say, Ginain, I want to position myself as a thought leader because I want to speak at ISTE next year in Chicago. Please describe your coaching process and what makes someone a great coach.
Well, really, a great coach truly becomes part of the team. Whether you're on in the same organization, or you're coming in on a consultant basis, you become a thought partner, in essence. So really a great coach is going to cultivate relationships. That's first and foremost, building trust. That's another huge component. And really always coming from a place of honesty, like I mentioned before, not being afraid to uncover the hidden. You're going to have to just be straight up and honest with me. And so that's kind of, my approach to it. But also knowing like there's a balance too. So you don't want to, you don't want to bring folks down. You want to always come from a place of having those good intentions and wanting to help. So that's in essence what a coach really, that should embody, a great coach. For me, I look at it within my role. Building capacity is huge for me. Because, like I said, we've got over 200 somewhat schools in the district. And so for one individual, or even just a small team of people to handle the marketing and the branding and the communications, it's impossible. You're going to run yourself down. You can't do that. It's just physically impossible to do that. And even, of course, funding is a huge issue. So it's not like we can afford to put an expert in every school or every other school to be able to handle marketing. So how do we approach that challenge? It's building capacity. And so for me, what that means, building capacity, it means empowering. We want to empower schools. We want to empower our leaders and our teachers to own, their strategies. Because at the end of the day, your family's the best, your students the best. So owning that, empowering them to be able to own that. You also want to arm leaders and staff with the tools to be able to do that, and information, and I also try to find ways to provide opportunities to learn. Okay, so that's always huge. So for me, it's teaching others how to do it themselves, because like I said, I can't do it, or even just a small group of people can't do it on our own. So that feedback that I mentioned to you earlier too, like that's a huge portion of it too. Like that's crucial, because that's going to build sustainability, when it comes to building your marketing plans and your communications plan. So that part is huge for me, and being able to measure success. So I know I've said a lot, but when it comes down to it, a great coach, they're going to empower you. A great coach is going to arm you with tools you need. They're going to provide those opportunities to learn. They're going to be honest. They're going to tell you the truth, but it's all going to be coming from a place of positivity and wanting to help. So I hope that answered your question.
Oh, yeah. So you work with people and sharing their stories and leveraging social media. What drew you to the digital space, and how do you assist educators in taking ownership of their online presence? And by the second one, I mean, you'll have people who will say, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be on Twitter. I don't want to be on LinkedIn. I don't want to do YouTube. I don't want, that space isn't for me. Now, even though I think it is incredibly important to be on those spaces and to take ownership of your digital identity or brand, or whatever term you want to use. So how do you get people to take ownership and actually actively engage in those spaces?
Okay. Wow, those are a lot of questions. So the first question is, how did I, get into the digital space type thing? I come from a creative background, so I actually used to be a graphic designer. And so I'm going to kind of date myself here a little bit, okay? But so in the early 2000s, okay, that's when print was pretty much the main source of marketing. So, you know, you had your collateral pieces and your print advertising. And, you know, at the time that was kind of the thing. Over the years, of course, we started to see the shift from print, not saying that print is dead, because print is still very much alive. But we've seen it go from print to digital. And so to me, that was kind of like a natural progression. And so, you know, the way digital space now is just, it's become such prime real estate for content. So when you're speaking in terms of graphic design and designing content, for me, like I said, it was a natural progression. And so I just started finding myself, you know, in that world, in that digital space. And then social media comes around, and, you know, you had the MySpaces, and then Facebook came along. And so, you know, it intrigued me. It's intriguing. I find it's so quick paced, you know, so just to stay on top of it is almost kind of like a full-time job, really. So that's kind of that portion of it. You know, it's really funny because I've seen it, and I'm just speaking from personal experience and being in education now for the past few years. I can just say that I've seen like such a turnaround, you know, when it comes to the attitude of social media. We've gone from being completely scared of it to now it's being embraced, and people want to learn more about it, and they want to be able to tell their story. And so a lot of the leaders who I, you know, deal with on a daily basis is, you know, we have so many challenges in education right now. We're getting such a black eye in the media for different things. You know, it could be, you know, funding and all the political stuff going on. And so how do we combat that? You know, how do we put kids in the forefront again? So really being able to tell your own story, owning your story, but then being able to tell it and using those digital tools as a way to get that information out. So I found that the attitude towards social media has, yeah, it's very rare now that I see anyone who's just like, I don't want anything to do with it, you know. It's more so like, oh wow, this is really intriguing, and that's how my audience captures all their information. So please tell me how do I maximize that, or how do I get into that, or how, you know, teach me. So it's really great to see that shift in attitude and in mindset, of how it's become a lot more embraced by educators, to be able to really, again, tell their stories, tell all the great things, all the miracles happening, you know, within our classrooms, and getting it out there to all of our stakeholders. So that's kind of, you know, my experience with it now.
Awesome, awesome. So for many years, educators have run away from our personal brand, the term personal branding. I can't tell you how many blog posts I've seen, and people are like, I'm not a brand, and branding is not for educators. Yet personal branding has caught fire recently with books like Brand Ed, written by Eric Schenniger, right? It's my boy. How do you define personal branding, and what are some of the steps educators should be taking to define their personal brand?
Well, first of all, okay, whether you like it or not, you're a brand. All right, so let's just get down to the matter of things. I mean, that's just the reality of it, is that we're all a brand, and at some point we're all marketers. You know, when you think about it, we're dealing with families, we're dealing with media, we're dealing with so many different stakeholders. And so you start to take on that marketer. Now, whether you're effective or not, that's a different story. So, but at the end of the day, you become a brand whether you're on Twitter or not. You know, it could just be as simple as, you know, a parent, you know, strictly requesting, hey, I want my child to be in this teacher's classroom. Why? Because maybe that parent has seen the interaction that you have with your students, or they see your work. They see, you know, you just developed this great new product or this great strategy that's helping other students. So that really is a brand. I really try to, communicate to my clients and to folks who I talk to on a daily basis. Your brand, a brand can't be created. And I think I actually posted something on my Twitter yesterday, is you can't create a brand. You are the brand. So you can develop it, you can develop your brand, you develop yourself, but really it's all about knowing who you are, what are your strengths, what's your passion, so we're all a brand. It just depends on what you want to do with it. Do you want to be a speaker? Do you want to create a product? Do you want to write a book? So those are the types of things that we really try and delve into when it comes to the coaching, is what's the end game? What are we working towards?
Awesome. Awesome. As you mentioned, part of branding is marketing. With the digital tools that are available and the social platforms that exist, marketing oneself has never been has been easier or more critical. How does an educator market themselves in a way that feels authentic and captures who they are and what they have to offer?
That's a great question. Like I said before, know yourself. Don't just tell your story, because folks, it has to come from a place of being genuine and real, and folks can see right through fakeness. Okay, so just knowing what your true passions are, where your true passions lie, and this means that you know your content better than anyone else. You know your skill better, and you know what? This is why I love working with teachers, is because teaching is one of the few careers that you see folks really crafting their own content. And so I always say that classrooms are like a gold mine, okay, for content curation. Every single day you're coming out the classroom with content to share. And so that's really a great thing. And that's why I'm starting to see so many educators become so successful at maximizing these digital tools, because of that content portion of it. That content is so important. So like I said, those classrooms, they're a gold mine, okay, for content development. So knowing that, and knowing what really gets you up out of bed every day, is it, obviously as a teacher, it's seeing your children, it's seeing your kids succeed in the classroom. It's seeing them, walk across the stage. It's seeing them, maybe not even going, I'll take it small steps. Maybe they, got their first A in your class, or they got a B, or whatever it is, those small successes that really, figure out what gets you out of bed every day. And really just, knowing how you want to be able to tell your story. Is it on when you're thinking about what platforms, are you a great writer and you just want to journal it all on a WordPress website? Or maybe you're not into writing, but maybe you want to do a podcast, or you want to do a YouTube live, whatever it is, there's something for everyone out there. So when you're talking about like authenticity and really being able to stand out, is, when I tell folks, before you make the plunge and go out on a platform, and pick one, by the way, don't decide that you're going to pick like 5 different platforms and now your brand is, or, your brand is all over the place, but maybe you're being inconsistent, or maybe you figured out you just like Twitter and you don't like Facebook and you don't like all the other ones, and now your accounts are sitting stagnant. You're going to start losing folks. So pick an outlet. So whether it's Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is that you feel comfortable in, and really start having dialogue, with your audience, and knowing who your audience is. That's huge. So I always try and sit down and really strategize how we're going to go about doing this. We talk about, crafting your target audience. And we talk about what are some ways that you can start having that dialogue, that back and forth dialogue, because it's more than just pushing content out. It's about, bringing the social back into social media. You want to have conversations, ask questions. You want to be a part of conversations. You want to help as well. So that's going to start helping you helping you to gain momentum, helping you to build those relationships, because at the end of the day, we call it digital tools and social media, but it really still is all about relationships and building those relationships.
Awesome. See, this is nice. This is nice. I just recently did a talk at Model Schools conference, and I spoke to them on this very topic of, telling your story, sharing your stories. And one of the things I kept trying to relay to them is, when we think of creation, when I think of creation, I'm not talking about you crafting a narrative out of nothing. I'm talking about documenting what you're already doing.
Absolutely.
And then sharing that. And that will end up being the narrative that becomes who you are. So I don't want, I tell people, don't just sit there, don't get out and start writing a script, and going, okay, I'm going to use this angle with the camera. I'm going to do this. No. Creation comes of you actually, putting the blog post together, or actually putting the video together, editing, etc. But it is important to just document what you're doing, because you're already doing awesome things. So document it and then share it. And then that becomes, the narrative, or your where people start to begin to think of when they hear your name. That's what they start to think.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's
no,
great.
Go ahead.
I cut you off. Go ahead. I'm getting
No, go ahead. You're the expert here.
Oh, no. I was also going to chime in is that, when we're talking about identifying your areas of expertise, being specific about it too. And so a lot of folks, come to me and say, well, what do you mean when you're saying identify your area of expertise? Like, I'm a teacher, so that's what I do. That's what I get paid to do. But it could be, do you have a certification? Maybe you started a program at your school. Have you maybe figured out a way? Have you mastered a way of incorporating Skype, into your lesson plans? Or, have you made a great, makerspace area in your school, and now other teachers are asking you how to do it? So those are the types of areas, and that's just a small example, but, those are just examples of how, you can really start, your niche, and like what you said, document it, journal it. And most teachers, they're already doing that, so I just wanted to chime in on that.
Awesome. This has been a good show. Starting to hear a little feedback. Hopefully that doesn't show up in the podcast. So, what is your call to action? Before we go, what is your call to action for educators who want to take the leap into the digital space, but think it's all about gorillas getting jiggy in a kiddie pool or Beyonce?
All right, so nothing against gorillas and Beyonce or anything, but hey, if that's what your audience goes for, why not? But no, I like I said, I try to keep things as simple as possible. So we talked a lot about how, to get started, identifying your areas of expertise, knowing what your passion is, and also finding an online publishing platform, whether that's a WordPress website, Blogger. There are several out there for you to research. It's a matter of personal preference and what you prefer. We talked about, if you're not really into the writing, you can do a podcast. SoundCloud is a really great place to start for that. And also take a look at if you're brand new to it, obviously, research different platforms of where your audience is. But also, if you're already on social media, maybe take a look at Google yourself, Take a look at your current social media platforms and clean it up if that's necessary, because we all know nothing ever really goes away in the digital world. So, you know, I get lots of comments sometimes say, look, I had a Twitter account like 5 years ago. I stopped using it. You know, I want to revitalize it. What do I do? Clean it up. Okay. So sometimes it's just better to start fresh. But if that's what you're doing, if you've been on social media, dabbling into it, take a look at that. And also too, just remember networking is super important in building those relationships. So networking online, but offline as well. You know, because like I said, digital doesn't mean that we're taking the relationship component out of it. It's still very much a part of it. So building those relationships, if you're, you know, if you have any meetups going on in your area, I would start, you know, meetups, participate in chats. Chats are great right now. Ed camps, you know, anything to start really cultivating relationships, learning. And when it comes down to it, it's all about, for me, quality over quantity. So a lot of folks get caught up on the followership. Don't even worry about the followers right now. The followers are going to come. That should be really the last thing that someone's really worried about, is the followership. I look at it as, come from a place of wanting to grow yourself, growing others, relationships. Again, I know I've said that word so many times, but it's so key. It's so important. Authenticity, you know, being you, being your genuine self, you know, and that's enough, you know, just being you, but knowing your strengths and knowing that you're an expert in your field. So how are you going to help others? And also that dialogue is really important. So those are just kind of some things just to start thinking about. Again, it's really super exciting to see this boom of educators on social media and really using it as a way to put kids back in the forefront and to help others and to own their PD. And, you know, it's a great thing, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, people. Thank you, Ginain, for being a guest on the show. People, you know how we do. This is going up on my YouTube channel. Please subscribe. I'm also going to put a blog post together. This will be shared on LinkedIn. This will be shared on Twitter. I may put it on Google Plus. You know, I don't go to that site often. And the audio version will be going on SoundCloud as well. So for those of you who have a long commute, or you like to listen to podcasts on your workout, that'll be a great space for you to get a nice vibe of the show as well. Again, thank you, Ginain, for being a guest on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful.
Awesome. Awesome. You are welcome. As always, people, invest in you, eat you. Peace.